I am, at the same time, extremely queer and extremely straight.
You can send them kindness and love from a very far distance.
I think a 10-year-old can consent to throwing away adult sexual function.
Like, what do you want me to say to that?
That can be gender euphoria, but it gets increasingly more unhinged doing housework.
So that's my first question, how to feel more connected to bird stereotypes.
Speaking of enforcing things on society, Briana, we're going to check out some pretty wild woke TikToks here. So this well-known
That demonic.
this well-known TikToker is back trying to convince people and kids to go no contact with their families.
So interesting thing about going no contact, especially with family, like partner, ending things and going no contact. You are doing it in a way to save the relationship, which is okay. It seems like you're dissolving the relationship, but in a way, things are not sustainable the way they are. And you can send them kindness and love from a very far distance. So in a way, you are choosing to bring love into the relationship. You are saving the relationship by destroying it. And that to me is a moral choice.
First of all, thoughts on the makeup?
Hold on a minute. Is Jeffrey Marsh trans? Like, I don't even know.
He's non-binary. He's non-binary.
Non-binary. Okay, got it. All right. Look, bitch, you're grown. You're a grown they. Like, what are you, like, what any sort of, like, what gives you the right to, like, sit up here and like, be a resource for kids? Like, where'd you get that from? Who told you that? Who said that? Like, what have you done to garner this, like, oh, I'm a platform and I'm a resource and a source for children? This, why? You're a grown ass person. Like, and on top of that, I'm not going to sit up here and say, cause I don't have a relationship with, like, my dad or, like, other people in my family. Right.
Yeah.
But that's for a lot of reasons. But to go up there, like, don't encourage people to do that. Like, that's a serious, and it was a sad thing for me. And I actually fought for that not to happen. But now I don't have a relationship with my dad, and my sister. And so don't sit up here and act like it's like, oh, you just send them love for away. Don't do that. That is such a painful thing to go through when you have to sever a relationship with a close family member. It is. It's painful. It's hard, and you don't forget it. And it sucks. Like, you go through every day and you're like, shit, like, I lost such a close family member of mine, and it's a painful experience. And so to sit up here and act like, oh, if you're not feeling like it, then fuck them. Like, no, don't encourage kids to, like, don't encourage kids to just deviate. Like, that's not responsible. That's not in their best interest. Like, if anything, encourage them to actually communicate with their families, communicate with their family members, talk things out, always try and resolve them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but to just say that, oh, it's a nothing, like, it can be a Tuesday, and you can say, your mom, like, no, baby, no. Who the are you? Like, who the are you? Need you a resource for, like for kids?
What are the motives behind it? I mean,
like, get out of my face, Jeffrey.
If it's not like you're a
it's fucking
motive,
weird.
Then the only thing I can see is someone who feels so insecure that they had to cut their family off, that now they need other people to do it in order to feel valid that they did it. And it's just like, what do you have to gain from, like, urging kids to do this? It should be last resort, and it should be.
You set up kids.
It should last resort. Like, it's. I mean, I also don't speak to my father, and that was, like, such a difficult decision.
Right.
But it came after, like, years and years and years of trying and, like, contemplating.
Me too.
And speaking to a therapist for, like, a year before I did that. So,
like, it's just so irresponsible, bitch. Like, and then you set up kids, like, kids that happens are so much more likely to be abused, or so much more likely to get into dangerous behaviors. Like, no. And just, like, and I don't on people, because I think we've lost, like, the actual gravity of what a groomer is. I think we've lost that, because now everything we don't like is grooming. Like,
sure.
However, do not encourage kids to engage in something that is more is statistically more likely for them to be groomed if they do that. Like, no, bitch, I don't like you.
Yeah, and there's no of an adult trying to put a wedge between their child and their parents that doesn't look good. That's why the whole thing in schools of, like, there could be a teacher that exploits by convincing a child, like, oh, your parents aren't going to accept you, like, I'm going to take care of this, and convince the child that their parents won't, when they might just be really supportive. So it doesn't look good. It's not a good look to be telling people.
No.
And he even has another video where he says, if you're thinking of going no contact, why don't you just try it? Why don't you just...
Girl, boy, what are you doing? Like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Just try it. No. I can't. Like, and on top of that, why feel the need to communicate with children online? Why? That's something I feel firm on. Then again, like, I can't control kids that look at my pictures online, because I know I model. Like, I can't control kids looking at my YouTube, and at the same time, I'm sorry, I'm grown, I'm adult, I'm 23 years old. I do not feel comfortable communicating directly with children online.
Yeah, me too.
It is my place. It is like, that's just not, I am not qualified to do that.
Yeah.
Nor is that a safe thing to do. So why is it that your grown ass feels so inclined to do that? Like, no, let's let actual parents do that. Let's let actual people certified to work with children do that. Not you. Not random fuck bitch that's in the, like, from somewhere that feels like they're an authority on something. Because no, who said that? I can't stand that hoe. I'm sorry.
Enough of Jeffrey. Let's move on. Person identifies as a bird.
Hi, my name is Asa. I'm a member of the DID system, and I'm also a bearded vulture therian. I have two questions. One is for other therians, specifically bird therians, and the other question is for other systems who have therian system members. So first question for other bird therians, what are some things you do that help you feel more connected to your stereotype? Like, I know that for people whose stereotypes are four-legged, they can do quadrobics, and that helps them a lot, but obviously that's not applicable to bird therians. I also want to clarify for anyone who doesn't know, quadrobics does not automatically equal therians. People can do quadrobics and not be a therian. So that's my first question, how to feel more connected to bird stereotypes. And second question is for systems with therian alters. Do these alters appear human in a world, or do they appear as their stereotype in a world? Or is it kind of a combo situation? Like, we have someone in our system who is both a guy and a vulture at the same time. We don't consider him a therian because he doesn't consider himself a therian. He just kind of exists as both of those things at once. Is that how therian alters work in you guys' systems?
So, just for anyone listening, this person, I mean, if you didn't understand it, don't worry, because it's not. But
I didn't either.
Their pronouns are they, z, bone, brittle. So the brittle is my favorite one. But Briana, does this represent you?
I mean, I have mental health problems, like, but at the same time, look, bitch, like, but you can, what, like, look, I believe in freedom, right? You can whatever you want, mama, you can whatever you want to think. But if you call yourself trans, bitch, you're going to have to go up against me, because I'm not playing that shit with you. I'm not. Don't sit up here and now you want to do trans activism to speaking for us. There is a lot of history on my side here as a trans person. And there's a lot of different arguments and cases to be made of gender dysphoria popping up with people that are from such a young age exhibiting that kind of behavior. But to say that you identify with birds, like, what is even the basis for that? Like, where is it that you that connection outside of your species? Like, is it because you think they're cool? Like, you think, like, if you think cars are cool, does that mean that you identify? Like,
No.
I'm like, at what point, like, it's like you give people the inch and they just go the mile. Like, you gave them an inch of being trans, like, okay, guys, like, you guys are weirdos, but, like, I get it. And then now we're over here. Like, how about we reel it in a little bit? How about we reel it in? I'm never going to say that you can't say what you want to say. Go ahead. If you're like, I really birds, like, blah, blah, blah. But they want to speak for the trans experience. They want to speak for trans people. That's where I have an issue. Like, I don't care. Go live your life. But at the same time, these people always want to get up on TikTok and start doing trans activism. No, baby. Don't do that.
You make me.
No.
You're hilarious.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's just like, what the are we even talking about now? Like, I miss when trans shit used to be kind of regular. Like, I mean, trans people are not regular, but, like,
yeah,
I miss when, like, it used to be like,
they kind of, okay, yeah, I kind of understand what's going on there now.
Like, right, like, we were starting to have an understanding, and then the shit just went backwards. Like, it just went all over the place. Like, I don't even know what this is,
And I know
mama.
that you said that, you just would respect someone's pronouns, but are you gonna, where's the line? Would you call someone bone brittle?
baby, you're lucky you threw that they in there, because I might give you that. I might on a good day. I might. If I'm feeling nice. But like bone brittle.
What would you say, like brittle
Like that's like
itself?
identifying as osteoporosis. Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean that's what do you mean that's a pronoun? Like, how is that a pronoun? Those are literal. That's an adjective. Like
Brittle bones.
bone brittle. Like, oh, that's bones. Like
Anyone seen brittle?
like it's getting weird. It's getting really weird. We have a mental health crisis. Like,
This is it. Next up, civilian claims a child knows if they'll be interested in sex at age 10.
You think a 10-year-old can consent to throwing away adult sexual function?
Like, what do you want me to say to that?
The truth?
It depends on the 10-year-old.
It depends
on the 10-year-old.
Depends on the person.
Oh
Not
my
everybody
gosh.
wants sex.
Not everyone. So she said it depends on the 10-year-old. Not everyone
bitch,
wants sex.
what? Bitch, what? And this is where activists get me fucked up. It's because, do you see, they're to ever concede on anything. Like, this requires engaging in a conversation. This is a very important conversation to have. Very important. But because they not want to even give an inch of a nuance in that conversation about why, like, because you could because what they're asking is like, are you like, can a child consent to like sexual function being taken away, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Why don't you engage in a conversation where you talk about, I agree with that. That's something that a 10-year-old probably cannot comprehend. How about we have a conversation of, well, then how can we set up a way for people to be diagnosed, go through therapy to determine if that medication is in their best interest? See, that would be a great way to approach activism, right? It like, see their perspective, engage with it, open up a better conversation about how can we meet in the middle there? Because then don't neglect kids where they're in severe distress with gender dysphoria at a young age. Like, because taking away their treatment that is in their absolute best interest, is that really, like, I think that's just, they get me up, but they died, and they don't ever want to come to agreement with that side. They don't ever. So they just start saying bullshit. They just start saying like, not everybody wants sex. Yeah, they're a 10-year-old. So no shit, mama. Genius. Oh my God. Like, they're so brain dead. It's all about just upholding their side. It's just about upholding their side. Like, nope, we're not going to agree with you. I don't agree with the Nazis. Like, I'm not agreeing with the fascists or whatever. So like, I have to just come up with every little bullshit for every valid thing they have to say. Like, that's a valid argument, and you can actually engage with that while still being on your side. Because, like I said, like a way for them to approach, like, here, let me activists some help here because they need it. Like, a way to approach that, acknowledge the counter argument, acknowledge it, understand where they're coming from, look at your own principles and say, okay, I agree. There's a conversation we had about medical consent for a child. However, medical consent is a different thing than general consent, especially talking about sexual consent. I think that would be a great thing for them to do. Differentiate between sexual consent and medical consent. Those are different things. Because if you're going to equate them, so then a child cannot consent to a dental procedure, can't consent to like something like that, like receiving like booster shot for school. Like, do you see, like, medical consent is a very different conversation than sexual consent. That would be an angle that they could go at, because they're trying, because they stop here when they're trying to the two. And so then they say some stupid shit like 10-year-old, like, not everybody's going to want sex. Like, see, when they're so to ever engage with any other conversation or argument that they just start saying stupid shit. Someone need to help. Someone need to send them help. Like, because this is embarrassing. Like, you guys making us look stupid. Like,
yeah, and the narrative is that, if you disagree with like 1% of anything, then you're taking resources away. But it's like the opposite. If we have
no, we're giving resources to people that need it.
Exactly.
Like,
and there's a lower chance that resources will ever be taken away if we're identifying the right people in extreme cases who have tried other things. And I mean, they just end up by like you said, refusing to give an inch. They end up saying really creepy stuff, like really.
Right. They end up, because they're so unwilling to ever move from that position, that they're not willing to engage in an actual nuanced conversation about it. So then they just start babbling bullshit. because we all looked at that and now you just made us all look nonsensical and deranged. So thanks a lot.
And just on a side note, you just see this random man in the background with like a clown face makeup. It's like, what is going on here?
I mean, kind of fitting, like, because it's clown hour over there.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, so this TikToker went viral for talking about gender euphoria.
Things that give me gender euphoria, but it gets increasingly more unhinged doing housework. There's just something that's so mommy-coded about destroying a mountain of dishes or like crisply folding laundry. Beating men. Not like physically beating men, but like winning against men in like sports or a video game or life itself. Also, the color green. I understand that colors don't have gender, but a good green, that's just for the girls, babe. Next, I'm gonna have to say crying. Before I transitioned, I was one of those girls-boys who like never cried, and now it's everyday like clockwork, and honestly, what is girlier than sobbing uncontrollably? Next, doing any activity with the wind in my hair, like running, biking, convertibles, boats, wind tunnels. Those last three I actually haven't experienced, but I imagine the euphoria would be off the chart. Also, reminder that there's an ongoing genocide that we need to be paying attention to, talking about, and calling our reps about. Just because your feed is back to normal doesn't mean the world is back to...
wait, bitch, what? Like, okay.
Do you feel euphoric when you do the dishes?
No, like, here's the thing. Like, I'm kind of taking this a little bit jokingly because and like I said, I don't shut down things because like just to say they're trolling. This does seem a little trollish, but let's engage with it because the problem is, like I was saying, unfortunately, this is one of those cases where I'm like, let's not just dig for any old reason to shit on trans people, please. Like, and I think that this is one of them. Like, this doesn't seem serious to me, but let's say it is, right? Let's say it is. Like, this one's hard for me because I think like for example, I see this a lot with like TERFs or like GCs, right? Where they kind of pick on trans people because they're like, oh, you got woman face, or like you're saying that like being a woman is this, and this, but then at the same time they'll look at trans people and they're like, oh, well, you still look like a man and this and that, and then so they kind of are defining what a woman looks like, because then you're picking on how a trans person looks, but you just told us that like, oh, just because you do makeup and hair and you like doing feminine things, that doesn't make you a woman. But then if you have masculine traits, they're like, oh, like you're a man. So you are defining what a woman looks like and what a woman does. Or like, for example, like a woman, like if a woman that like they're still speaking with a lower voice or like their mannerisms and stuff. So it's like, you guys can define those things. You are. But you guys are just being different because it's a trans person. And so with this, I think it goes back to that whole thing of like, this one's hard for me. This one's hard because I just don't know what's serious and what's not here. I don't know.
So many things. Like, it kind of gives me Dylan Mulvaney vibes, and people are like, "Oh my God, look, trans people are misogynist." It could also be a joke, and this was on Sky News Australia. Like,
this to me just seems way too much like a joke. Like, yeah, like in my personal opinion, this just seems like a fucking joke. This seems like some bitch that just turned on her phone and is just saying random shit. Yeah. I don't know if this is worth like a discourse from people. I saw this on my timeline, but I just didn't watch it because I was like, I don't care.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I'm bringing it to you, sir.
No, it's good. Let's talk about it. Like, because I think it just goes to show you, like, when you transition, like I'm not going to play dumb because obviously like certain things made me feel like a girl when I was transitioning that were feminine. Like, I remember when I first started transitioning, I would run this big ass pink purse and like I would do so much makeup, so much colorful hair. And it's like, I mean, they just said like the color green feels like a girl thing. And like,
yeah,
certain things make them feel like a girl. Like, and so I think that that's a part of transitioning is you are going to embody stereotypes. That's part of it because we live in a world, like even biological men and women do that. They do that, make them, oh, this makes me feel girly. This makes me feel like a man.
And
like that's just a part of it.
Is biological. Like these gender critical people will also, they will say gender is not socially constructed. Like, there's key differences between men and women of what we on average both like and dislike, and the way we behave. A lot of it is to do with evolution, where it's like evolutionary strategies and how we all behave, the things we like and dislike. But but then someone says like, I want to live as a woman. They say, well, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Right. Like that's exactly what I think this is perfect of. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, you guys are like men and women, you cannot be a man, you cannot be a woman. And like, just because like you do this and make you a woman, I'm like, okay, fair. But then you guys are also talking about what is a man and what is a woman. So like it's just a huge contradiction. Like I think it's just a huge contradiction of when it comes to trans people. Because then that's where they start slapping you with that stuff don't make you a woman. Like women don't have to do that. Like that's not what makes a real woman. But then you guys, by doing that, you are defining what is a woman then. Because then if you're a trans person, like let's say that they want to be a woman and they look completely masculine, and you're like, you don't look like a woman. So you guys just said none of those things make you a woman. So what is it? Then what the fuck is it? And so like with this, I just don't even think this is serious either. Like it just seems like some young girl that's just like shit, like just babbling on her
Still
phone.
spawns an interesting conversation. But like makeup, for example, you know, people say, oh, that's just a social construct, but like women biologically want to look more youthful because they're more fertile, fertile.
Yeah.
So like you can see where makeup comes into it because you have the blush and like making skin look, healthier, more having more vitality. So and if a very hyper feminized boy experiencing gender dysphoria, then it makes sense why you would associate that with being a woman. But Briana, thank you for entertaining me on that one, considering you swiped before. So last up, this TikToker claims to be every gender, no gender, straight and gay at the same time.
Why am I both extremely straight and also extremely queer? Here we go. I am pangender and pansexual. So I use all pronouns because I am non-binary, but I also do not feel a like strong connection to any of the genders, but also I don't feel like a strong ew, I hate it to any of the genders. Though if you call me ma'am, I will punch you. But if I am all genders, that means I'm always straight in a relationship. But it also means I am always super fucking queer. So it works every way. I am, at the same time, extremely queer and extremely straight.
She's having her cake and eating it. I think that's the best example of that.
Look, yeah. This is what happens when shit don't mean things no more.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with things meaning something? Like, what? So why the fuck do you want to be queer then so bad? Like for what? Like for points online? Like for oppression points or something? Like it's because I think it goes back to that people want a community. People want identity because people don't have that in real life as much anymore. Like we're so isolated in person, and so people go online to find communities and find validation and find identities. And it's like, bitch, what the fuck you mean you're straight but you're queer? Like, no, it don't work that way, sis. Like it really doesn't. Like by definition, it don't work that way. Like, how are you straight and gay? How do you say you don't want to be called ma'am?
Well,
but then you don't like none of the genders, but you like all the genders. Like you don't know what you like or what you are. So you're having an identity crisis, my love. You're having an identity crisis. Log off. Put the phone down. Like, girl, take a deep breath. Like, go open the schools, Joe. Like, do something. Like because these people need a identity really bad. Like, because the thing is, like what's killing me is the straight and queer. Like, I'm so used to the gender best that like seeing like I'm straight but I'm queer just kind of threw me. Like, oh, that's a new one. Like, what do you mean you're straight but you want to be queer? Remember a time when like this is still kind of thing, like I remember being a kid and like humiliated that people thought I was gay. Like people thought I was gay before I even thought I was gay. Like I never fully came into like being gay. I was never like, oh, that's me, because like I really was just having gender dysphoria, but I didn't know what that meant at the time. And so every time people would call me gay, I was like, I mean, sure, but like it doesn't feel like me. But and that was because I had gender dysphoria. But with this person, like you're straight, but you're queer. No, you want community. You want to be a part of that community. Like, girl, just go make gay friends or something. Like, what do you mean? Like, don't take that label and make it and reduce it to just like some random I just think it's cool. Like, no, like people actually go through things being gay and lesbian. People go through hard experiences socially. People that are trans go through horrific experiences socially. It's such a difficult life being actually gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender. Like, just because you want a community does not mean that you are by definition a part of that community. That's okay. That's okay. Because look, like I don't mean to pull this card, but like what if she was like, I'm white? But like
I know what's coming.
I had to go there because look, I had to go there. Because what if she was like, I'm white, but like I want, like, I don't know, but like I feel Latina.
So she's both.
Girl, everybody would look at you fucking crazy because I think that we've already kind of established some boundaries there. But for some reason, we haven't done it here yet.
Yeah.
Like,
and remember, she said that she's pan-gender. So I think the appropriate analogy there would be, I'm all the races, so I'm pan race. But imagine if, like me, so I'm Irish, so I grew up in, like, rural, kind of largely conservative. Like me walking into school, getting called queer, like getting jokes put on me about like sexual innuendos. Imagine if I'd gone up to them and say, well, actually, I'm pan gender because I'm all the genders. So I'm straight and gay at the same time. They would have looked at me like, what the hell? And this is why I'm really critical of the non-binary movement, because there are many people who are straight, a lot of them, not all, but straight, white, privileged people, middle-class people who decide to identify as non-binary. And I'm like, I find this insulting as a gay man that you are latching onto this because it's trendy and to kind of seem more marginalized, when some of us really had to go through a lot to learn to love ourselves, and you're just hopping on the bandwagon. And that's why I'm not a fan of the whole thing, because it's either urging gay people to think, I'm not enough anymore, I'm not marginalized enough anymore.
Yeah, no one cares anymore. Like, so I'm gonna do something.
It's telling straight people, be queer. You can be queer too. All you need to do is put up your hand and say, I am pangender, I'm trigender.
Like, this to me, and see, here's the thing, like, I can understand, because like I recently read about I recently read about a Quaker, like like not centuries ago. You know what I'm talking about? The universal friend. Like, I read about that, and that was very interesting to me. But then again, that's a very different case because that was a religious-based thing. However, so I'm never gonna take away gender nonconformity to people, and so if people really truly just do not like being associated with a gender, whatever, fine, I'll let y'all have it. But my issue, though, is that these people hop in and they're the ones doing activism. They're the ones dictating what trans people need. They're the ones saying that, oh, like, we need this and that. My computer needs this. You're who? What? Baby, like, that's where I draw a hard line, and where, like, I'm never going to dictate what people can and can't think about themselves. But at the same time, you guys need to stop speaking for a group of people that you are just not a part of. And that's okay. What the fuck is wrong with that? Like, you're not a trans person. That's fine. Because we all kind of have something in common, in that we go through like a transition process. I had to go to court. I had to go to court at like 15 years old to go legally change my name. And I had to sit up there in front of a judge. And this was in a conservative state. So it's like, I was already going in there and they were looking at me like, the fuck? Especially because this was before trans was like a big conversation. They were looking at me like, hello, what do you mean? And like, just talking to him, he was like, you know what? Like, I hope that this really helps you feel like who you are. And I hope that this makes you happy.
It's nice.
Like, and so I had to go through a whole court process of changing my name. I had to like fight with the school about getting them to like even call me my pronouns, because a lot of the teachers didn't. A lot of it, like, the school took forever to change the name, like on like just like in the school system. So like, when like the worst was when we had a substitute teacher come, would print out like the list, would have my old name on it, and they would say it in front of the class. It was humiliating.
Yeah.
And then to go through taking hormones as a teenager and all the things I went through with that, to go through surgeries, like, girl, like, and this is one of those things where I think we all have enough intelligence to discern this is a person with identity problem. Like, this is not just being a trans person. This is not just being gay. This is somebody that's having an identity crisis because they don't know who they are or what they want to be. And baby, I don't think that you hopping into this bandwagon because you're already online speaking for us in a way, don't do that.
Yeah.
We all have a shared culture, a shared experience. We all like, and nothing wrong with not having that. Not everybody needs to be oppressed. Like I need you to find some value, sis. Like, I need you to find some real substantial value and identity in your life. And this ain't it.
It's become so scary for people
This
to
is not
take that
it.
leap, because it's like, my theory is that with social media and this constant comparisons, comparing each other, people lack a resilience and they're scared of failing and not their lives not being perfect. So the easiest way to solve that issue is to be oppressed and then always have, well, like, I could have never done that anyway. But I think on your point, with speaking for us, I totally agree with that. It's like, if you want to turn what was once androgynous, what was once like a David Bowie and like all these people into a new identity, like, go for it. And if you want it to have a name, but it's like, it doesn't make you similar to me. It doesn't make it similar to you. And I'm not sure how much I even want it, like, being an LGBT. And this is why I also am quite passionate about the T being kept, because I do think that while you and I are very different, there's a process of coming to like learning that you have all these feelings as, a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, and kind of dealing with them alone for a certain amount of time, like not talking about it, facing bullying. Like, that is like, adolescence is hard enough, but to have that on top is a challenge. Even if people accept you, you have to come to terms with, oh, well, I am the whatever percent of society that's going to have a very different experience. So I think that's where I'm pretty critical of it.
Yeah, I feel you on that. And like, even remember when like you were talking about like feelings you were having about your body and like developing and all those things, like we had those in common. Like there's a lot of shared life experience, shared culture, shared just thought patterns that we all have, even amongst just LGBT and trans people. And with this person, it just seems like a more of a self-expression thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. That just doesn't mean that you need to be a part of a community where we all have a shared experience with something. That's why we're in community. That's why we are. But just because you desire to express yourself in a different way. And I think this also, there's a lot of things that go into it. I think that goes into like also social media kind of rewards this in a way. Like, this gets you like a platform. Like, that's why, like, even on my For You page, I don't even be looking at shit like this and it pops up like all the time. Like, it's boosted by social media, but
yeah. And it's also,
I don't know, it just
gender,
makes it's
like,
frustrating.
the further people go with gender, the more they think, oh my God, look, I have all this deep knowledge of gender and this really intrinsic understanding of what gender means. Like, I'm more sophisticated than you. It's like a whole philosophy. And they view it's very any political movement that wants to upend society, like the hippie movement, like all these things that kind of put a middle finger up to the world and say, you're doing it wrong. You guys are brainwashed. We know it. Like, it's very much trying to overthrow, like, traditional gender norms. And it's like, babes, you're never going to do that. And you're definitely not going to be doing it
It's
by
never gonna
saying this
happen,
like
sweetie.
nonsensical stuff.
Right. And that's never going to happen, sweetie. That's never going to happen. And this even comes from somebody that I do push on it, because I acknowledge how sometimes when we're so critical of people not fitting it, it can push people to want to transition younger. I do back on that because I lived it. However, with this case though, like, there's such a clear difference in someone, you just want to defy all those norms, and that's okay. That's fine. But for a lot of us, we do find comfort in them. I find comfort in my transition because I fell into a role that was better for me, that made me feel like me. And that's a very, very different experience than somebody like this, where it's just like, I don't even know how to comprehend it because I just haven't lived that. I've never thought that way. And so that's a indication right there why there's people like me that we've all lived like this, and there's people like you that live like that. That doesn't mean that you need to hop over here and then you need to start doing activism speaking for us. We have different needs. There's a reason why people like me go through legal process, we go through medical process, we go through all kinds of stuff since we're young. While with you, like, it's really just about maybe changing your hair color and, popping in like a septum piercing. And that's okay. Go off, bitch. But like, that does not mean that you need to now that means, oh my God, I'm a minority and I need to advocate for our rights. Like, that doesn't, no, don't do that. There's a reason why we are all in community and why we are trying to advocate for things. That does not mean that they apply to you. That does not mean that needs to be a part of you. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But unfortunately, you can't push back on that because then that's transphobia, or like they call you all kinds of names, like, oh, you're trying to gatekeep, and like, oh, you're a medicalist, or like whatever kind of bullshit they came up with. And I'm
Gatekeeping
like,
is
no,
sometimes a
I'm just
good
pointing out the
thing. I
obvious.
mean, like,
Right. Like, I'm pointing out the obvious
being
here.
gay, for example, isn't an identity. It's like something you can't change. So like that gatekeeping happens by default, and you can try and rewrite the
Right.
term lesbian to be like a non-man who loves non-men, but that's just your idea, and it's not biological. But look,
Right. And that's when and like this, like one more thing, like, and that's where like why I so wanted like a huge differentiation, and why there's nothing wrong with you expressing yourself that way. However, why do you think now people look at us and they're like, oh, we should not be letting these people transition. We shouldn't be letting anybody transition. Because this is a very clear example of I needed to medically transition, and likely this person doesn't. And that's why we need a separation here. Because there's a difference between people that go through really severe gender dysphoria and medical transition is the number one treatment for them and will help them. And then there are people where it's a form of self-expression. We need a line in the sand. We need a line in the sand, because do you see, that's two different things to advocate for.
Yeah.
But when you mesh them together, people look at us and they're like, so we're handing out hormones to just for fun? We're handing it out just because you want to express yourself differently. So now you want us to give you hormones? And you want to have surgery? Like, that's where we need a line in the sand. Very two clear, different needs.
And it's even very well said. No, I appreciate your honesty. I think, and it's even into like non-binary people getting double mastectomies just to achieve androgyny. And it's like, this is not a fashion choice. You know, I find that bizarre, and I can't believe how many doctors are willing to put a non-binary person on testosterone, like just for 6 months to get a bit more androgynous. I think that is like that's like a bodybuilder going to a doctor and saying, I want steroids, and the doctor being like, yeah, sure. Like, we all know people are going to go and do it, but like, it's not, it's just me. And I think we'll look back on this in 30 years and trans people like you will very much still exist.